You have the first pay-per-view of the year, the main event. I feels like a little bit controversial.
What's controversial about it?
Trying to figure out what's happening with these title shots.
Arman is kind of the odd man out here.
If we're building this purely on meritocracy, he should be in.
The UFC does not care anymore. They don't care.
If I told you that the UFC's first main event of 2026 was going to be Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, you'd probably assume something went wrong. One of them is living off past glory and somehow managed to corner the UFC into a title shot or retirement situation. The other one? Yeah, that one's a bit more complicated. Here's how we got here. Ilia Topuria made it clear he wouldn't be ready to defend his belt at the start of the year while dealing with personal issues, so instead of waiting or handing the opportunity to the clear #1 contender, the UFC pivoted. They booked Gaethje vs Pimblett for an interim belt, with a massive unification fight against Topuria targeted for later this year, and that decision didn't sit right with a lot of fans.
What's grabbing, gang? Trying to figure out what's happening with these title shots once again.
Somehow, Arman Tsarukyan, the most obvious, most deserving contender in the division, never even entered the conversation, which tells you everything you need to know about what the UFC values more right now: momentum and marketability over merit. And that same shift in power is exactly what makes the co-main event so interesting. 2 years ago, Sean O'Malley was champion, knocking guys out and sitting at the center of the division. Now, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, and under the old order, that meant absolutely no direction. But Merab Dvalishvili isn't champion anymore. With Petr Yan back on the throne, the division suddenly feels wide open again. And for O'Malley, that matters, because he already owns a win over Yan.
You know, I believe I'm going to go out there, put on a beautiful performance against Song, and it's just going to make sense. Sugar versus Peter 2 at the White House, like, I'm sold on it.
One spectacular performance here, and a title rematch that once felt impossible is suddenly right back on the table. For Song Yadong, the opportunity is just as real. He's been hovering near the top for years, always one statement win away. Beating O'Malley is exactly what he's been looking for. 2 fights, one for an interim belt, the other a title eliminator, and 2 fights that could end up defining the future of 2 divisions in 2026.
Fighting Business is one of my favorite new channels going right now.
Thank you to the Fighting Business, absolutely amazing.
Sean O'Malley versus Song Yadong. Let me start by saying this: immediate rematches should be earned. Now, if you're a truly dominant champion like GSP or Anderson Silva, then yeah, an immediate rematch after losing the belt makes perfect sense. But Sean wasn't that kind of champion. And the problem with immediate rematches is this: if the former champ wins, we're almost guaranteed a trilogy. And let's be honest, most fans aren't excited about that. If he loses again, he's suddenly stuck needing multiple wins just to sniff another title shot. At first, I thought that's exactly what was happening with Sean. But then I stopped and thought, wait a second, Merab Dvalishvili isn't the champion anymore. Sean is 0-2 against Merab, and if Merab were still holding the belt, a win over someone like Song Yadong would have meant basically nothing for Sean. He'd still be stuck. But now that Petr Yan is the champion, everything changes.
Tweet, Song, you're out. Peter, you're next.
Especially when you remember that Yan and Sean went to war a few years ago, a fight that ended in a very controversial decision and has been screaming for a rematch ever since.
That's crazy.
When Sugar beat Petr Yan by split decision back in 2022, that's all he needed for the UFC to give him a title shot. And once he did, he delivered one of the cleanest counter-striking knockouts we've ever seen inside the octagon. They then handpicked Marlon Vera for his first title defense, but at some point, Merab became inevitable. And as many predicted, he dominated him twice and shut down the O'Malley era. Like I said earlier, what bothered me most at the time was Sean being gifted the immediate rematch after sitting out, while Merab actually defended his belt. Not only because he didn't deserve it, but because if he loses again, he wouldn't smell another title shot for years. But Petr Yan becoming champion completely changed the conversation. All of a sudden, Sean O'Malley fighting for the belt again doesn't sound crazy at all. That said, he's still got a dangerous test in front of him: Song Yadong. I've seen Song shut people's lights off with a single shot. Alejandro Perez and Marlon Moraes found that out the hard way. He's 11-3 in the UFC, which is a very solid record, and he's coming off the biggest win of his career, beating Henry Cejudo. Stylistically, this fight has firework written all over it. Both guys are strikers, but they go about it very differently. Sean is long, rangy, and creative, while Song is more of a pure boxer who doesn't rely on kicks all that much. The key factor here might be Sean's height and reach. If he can keep Song at the end of his punches, manage the distance, and pick him apart from the outside, that classic straight shot combo could show up again. For Song though, the path is pretty clear. He's got to make this fight ugly. Constant pressure, staying in Sean's face, dragging him into clinch exchanges. This is shaping up to be a straight kickboxing match, and I'd be shocked if anyone even thinks about shooting a takedown.
Yeah, I'm excited for this fight because Sean's just got to keep his distance, look for that sniper shot, and then try to land that shot. Whereas Song Yadong's got to be able to get inside and get his hands on O'Malley.
So the real question is, does Sean's reach and precision control the fight? Or does Song Yadong land one of those brutal elbows or overhand bombs that completely flips the script? If you're already watching fights like this and breaking them down in your head just like I do, this is the exact type of card where MyBookie actually make things more interesting. What I like is you're not locked into just picking a winner. You've got player props, round betting, method of victory. You can literally build your own bet based on how you think the fight plays out. And with UFC that matters, because half the time it's not about who wins, it's about how it happens. If you do want to check it out, go to mybookie.ag and use code TFB when you sign up. That'll get new users a welcome bonus to get started. Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett. When Paddy made his UFC debut back in 2021, he made sure everyone noticed. First round knockout of Luigi Vendramini, absolutely nasty. And on top of that, he dropped one of the most memorable one-liners we've ever heard.
You know me saying, lad, I'm a Scouser. We don't get knocked out. Hey, I take that all day.
From that moment on, it was easy for fans to jump on the Paddy hype train. The upbeat personality, the berserker fighting style, and the fact that he's just straight up entertaining on the mic. It all clicked. And honestly, why not? The guy was a former Cage Warriors champion, and we've seen how that story can go. Conor McGregor, Michael Bisping, those are the first two names that come to mind. His next fight, first round submission. The one after that, another submission. That's 3 performance of the night bonuses in a row. Everything was rolling.
The judges scorecard for decision. All 3 judges score this contest 29-28 for the winner by unanimous decision, Paddy Pimblett.
This decision right here started a lot of controversy. A lot of Paddy fans actually walked away after that one, not only because he arguably lost that fight, but also because he refused to acknowledge it.
That was a close one. No, it wasn't. That wasn't close.
When you look back in the history books, I've got the little green marker next to my name with a W, so everyone else can suck me arsehole.
At that point, all Paddy really needed was one dominant win to make everyone forget about that night, ideally a finish. But instead, we got the Tony Ferguson fight, a fight set up for Paddy to look good and get a finish, but he didn't. And that's when the questions really started popping up.
Who he beat? Okay, who he beat? From top 5. One name, just one name. Tony Ferguson?
Yes, he won against the aged, over their prime Bobby Green and Michael Chandler, but still, you'd say Paddy needs at least 1 or 2 wins over top 5 contenders before getting a title shot, right? Well, after some very public back and forth with Ilia Topuria,
You little pussy.
Paddy Pimblett. He gets so fat, I don't know, anti-athletic.
He's a midget, lad. He's tiny. He's smaller than Michael Chandler.
Uncle Dana and Hunter Campbell apparently thought, hold on, what if we just give it to him? 2 years ago, the idea of Paddy Pimblett fighting for UFC gold felt insane. And here we are in 2026, Paddy versus Gaethje for the interim title, with the winner potentially facing Ilya for the undisputed belt.
Dana, earlier this week, you scheduled Arman Tsarukyan to fight Dan Hooker in November.
Yeah.
And will the winner of that fight become the #1 contender in the lightweight division?
Will the number of that? Yeah. Yeah.
When Ilia Topuria won the lightweight belt against Charles Oliveira last June, the next move felt pretty obvious. You make the fight with the #1 contender, Arman Tsarukyan. It's pretty simple. Now, Ilya's currently sidelined while dealing with a legal battle with his ex-wife, so he's not defending the belt anytime soon. And logically, that should make Arman the clear choice to fight for the interim title. But no, the UFC looked at Paddy Pimblett, saw the bigger draw, and let him skip the line without beating any real top contenders. And if you think that is questionable, How about Justin Gaethje? Look, there was a time when Gaethje was a straight-up monster, the kind of fighter you'd show your friends when you're trying to get them into MMA.
Justin Gaethje's a monster. He's a monster. He's a terrifying individual. In a sport that's violent, he stands out as the most violent.
But lately, he's been doing a lot of waiting around, basically saying title shot or nothing. And that's not how title shots are supposed to work. You earn them with activity and wins over elite competition, so what is it? Did he really pressure the UFC into giving him a title shot by threatening retirement?
There was rumor that you'd said if you didn't get a title shot next that you might retire. Was there any truth to that? And if so, is giving you this interim title shot kind of said, okay, I feel like I'm getting what I deserve now?
Well, I definitely, I got what I asked for. We're emotional beings, and we're petty. You don't get to where I'm at or where these fighters are at without being petty. I take things personal, and I thought I had earned something, and so I was trying to stand up.
Because getting brutally knocked out by Max Holloway and then winning a decision over Rafael Fiziev doesn't exactly scream next title challenger.
What do you think about the Gaethje fight, though? Gaethje's a real fighter. A real fighter, but he's not in his prime, and he just got lucky that he got that opportunity to get title fight.
At this point, it feels like the UFC is just punishing Arman.
He had an opportunity, and you guys know how that played out, and he's gonna have to work his way back. I don't give a shit what the number says. He's gonna have to work his way back. There's just too much goes into this for those type of things to happen.
And Gaethje happened to be at the right place at the right time. And honestly, Arman didn't do himself any favors either. I mean, come on, headbutting Dan Hooker at the face-offs, as if pulling out of the Makhachev fight wasn't already enough to annoy the boss. The UFC's vision is clear. They want Pimblett versus Topuria. It's a massive fight business-wise, and Justin Gaethje has the opportunity to completely blow up those plans. For Paddy, even if he loses, he's still young, still hungry, and still has time to bounce back. For Gaethje, the clock is ticking, and the only way we keep seeing him in big fights is if he wins this interim belt right now. As for the matchup itself, Gaethje's a very strong defensive wrestler, but let's be honest, his jiu-jitsu game is still a major weakness. If Paddy gets on top and locks in a dominant position, it could be over pretty soon. But what if Justin drags Paddy into his world, forces him to stand and trade, and proves that Scouser can, in fact, get knocked out after all? UFC 324 is a weird card. Interesting, frustrating, and very telling all at once. With Amanda Nunes versus Kayla Harrison off the table, there isn't a single undisputed title on the line. Instead, we're left with an interim belt that feels manufactured, a non-title fight with massive consequences, and a card that says a lot more about UFC decision-making than it does about divisional order. For Song Yadong, one win could finally push him over the edge and into real contender status. For Sean O'Malley, it's a career pivot, either the start of a fast return to the title picture or a slide into irrelevance that a few years ago would have sounded unthinkable. For Justin Gaethje, it's even simpler. This is the last door. Win and the story continues. Lose and one of the most violent careers of this era likely comes to a quiet end. But the fighter who stands to gain the most from this entire night is Paddy Pimblett. Beating Gaethje wouldn't just earn him an interim belt, it would fast-track him into superstardom, unlock fights that once felt impossible, and validate every controversial decision the UFC made to get him there. And I think it's what's missing. Like, the UFC needs to make the sport more legit by following the guidelines, the structure that they implemented within the sport. UFC 324 isn't the card we expected to kick off 2026, but it might be the card that reminds us of how the UFC really works, where momentum beats merit, timing beats rankings, and careers are changed not just by who wins, but by who the UFC chooses to bet on.